After years of chaos and foreign rule, Sumerian civilization rose once more. Around 2112 BCE, the city of Ur emerged as the new heart of Mesopotamia. Its king, Ur-Nammu, founded what would become known as the Third Dynasty of Ur, or Ur-III, beginning of the Neo-Sumerian Renaissance. This revival followed the collapse of the Akkadian Empire and the withdrawal of the Gutians, whose disruptive rule left Sumer fragmented and weakened. But the Sumerians had not disappeared. In cities like Ur, Uruk, and Lagash, local leaders preserved traditions and waited for their chance to rebuild. Under Ur-Nammu's leadership, Sumer was reunited not through brute conquest but through order, faith, and reform. The capital city of Ur became a vibrant center of politics, religion, and culture. It was a return to the roots of Sumerian identity, but with lessons learned from empire. Temples were restored, laws were codified, and scribes once again filled archives with hymns, records, and decrees. This was not a repetition of the past, it was a refinement. The Sumerians had returned, and for a brief moment, they stood brilliant once more. As he rebuilt temples and restored order, Ur-Nammu offered more than walls and statues, gave his people law. Around 2100 BCE, he issued one of the earliest legal codes ever recorded, written in clear Sumerian script centuries before Hammurabi. The Code of Ur-Nammu laid out a vision of structured justice, penalties for theft, false accusations, injury, and corruption, regulations on marriage, inheritance, and property rights. Unlike later eye for an eye systems, many punishments were fines, showing a preference for restitution over revenge. More than a list of rules, the code declared why justice mattered. Ur-Nammu portrayed himself not just as a ruler, but as a divinely appointed lawgiver chosen by the gods to bring order, protect the weak, and maintain peace. His laws were sacred, inscribed on tablets and monuments, and enforced across his kingdom. In creating this code, Ur-Nammu established a new image of kingship, just, orderly, and God-blessed. Future rulers, from Babylon to Assyria, would follow his example. And in these laws, the Sumerians revealed their deep commitment to fairness, balance, and human dignity. During the reigns of Ur-Nammu and his son Shulgi, Sumer entered a golden age of architecture, engineering, and art. Across the land, temples and palaces rose from the dust, crafted not just for function but for beauty, symbolism, and the gods. At the heart of this transformation stood the Ziggurat of Ur, massive step temple dedicated to Nana, the moon god. Built with baked brick and advanced planning, it towered over the city, symbolizing the bridge between heaven and earth. Its layers, stairways, and shrine reflected a vision of cosmic order stone shaped into sacred geometry. Beyond ziggurats, the Neo-Sumerians rebuilt administrative centers, storehouses, and shrines, uniting design with civic function. Walls were inscribed with dedications, drains and courtyards revealed engineering skill and city planning. Art also flourished. Stone reliefs, cylinder seals, and statues showed refined detail and religious devotion. Kings were depicted with divine favor, surrounded by symbols of powerlians, stars, gods. Scribes carved hymns and praise poems into their work, blending beauty with meaning. This was more than decoration. It was a cultural statement. Sumer had returned not just in strength, but in splendor. While Ur-Nammu laid the foundations, it was his son Shulgi who perfected the Neo-Sumerian state. Ruling for nearly 50 years, Shulgi was more than a king. He was a scholar, priest, administrator, and reformer. His reign transformed Sumer into a model of efficiency, unity, and divine kingship. Shulgi standardized weights and measures, ensuring fairness in trade and taxation. He reformed the scribal schools, raising the standard of education and preserving Sumerian literature, law, and science. His administrative records are some of the most detailed in Mesopotamian history. To unify his realm, Shulgi expanded the bureaucracy, appointing regional governors loyal to Ur and constructing roads and communication networks. He didn't just control territory, he linked it, city by city, ledger by ledger. But Shulgi also reshaped royal identity. He declared himself divine, blurring the line between king and god. Hymns praised him as wise, radiant, and eternal, a ruler of both earth and spirit. Under Shulgi, order replaced chaos, and the spirit of Sumer was codified not only in brick and law but in ritual, symbol, and soul. He ruled not just with power, but with precision and purpose. Beneath the ziggurats and royal statues, the true strength of the Ur-3 dynasty lay in its bureaucracy. Under kings like Shulgi, Sumer became a civilization of paperwork and clay. Across the empire, scribes documented everything: temple offerings, land grants, tax collections, harvest yields, labor quotas, and diplomatic gifts. These records weren't occasional, they were systematic. Every temple, palace, and city center became an archive, filled with tens of thousands of tablets. Government agents managed complex systems of taxation and redistribution, moving grain, textiles, livestock, and silver across the kingdom. Trade routes were regulated. Contracts were written and sealed. Inventories were checked and cross-checked. Even distant governors sent regular reports back to Ur. This wasn't just administration, it was information control, the world's first fully integrated civil record system. Today, many of these tablets survive, offering modern scholars an unmatched glimpse into ancient Sumerian life. They reveal a world where law, economy, and ritual were recorded in extraordinary detail. This was the high point of Sumerian statecraft, a society managed not only by kings and gods, but by scribes with styluses and archives of memory. In the Neo-Sumerian world, the temple was everything, not just a house of the gods, but the beating heart of the city. Under the kings of Ur-3, temples were rebuilt, expanded, and revitalized like never before. Massive ziggurats, including the Grand Temple of Nana in Ur, rose high above the plains. These stepped towers were more than symbols, they were cosmic ladders, linking heaven and earth, gods and people. Their construction brought thousands together in labor and celebration. But temples were not only sacred spaces, they were economic engines. They managed storehouses of grain, operated as banks, and ran scribal schools. Priests and priestesses oversaw both ritual and redistribution, blending spiritual and administrative authority. Religious life flourished. Hymns were composed and copied, preserving the voices of earlier ages. Myths were retold, sometimes reinterpreted to reflect the ideals of Neo-Sumerian kingship and divine favor. Public festivals returned, with music, offerings, and processions filling temple courtyards. The gods were once again central, present in clay, in song, and in stone. This temple revival wasn't just about religion, it was about restoring the soul of Sumer, reaffirming that even after war and collapse, the divine order could be rebuilt. The Neo-Sumerian Renaissance lasted just over a century, but its impact reached far beyond. Though the Ur-3 dynasty eventually faded, the systems it built shaped Mesopotamian civilization for centuries to come. In Ur's palaces and temples, the Sumerians perfected the tools of governance, bureaucratic hierarchies, standardized taxation, record-keeping, and regional oversight. These innovations didn't vanish, they were adopted and expanded by the Babylonians, who modeled much of their empire on Ur-3's design. The Sumerian language, though no longer spoken by all, endured as the language of law, ritual, and scholarship. In scribe schools, students continued to study its grammar, copy its texts, and preserve its myths. Temple libraries housed thousands of tablets, ensuring that Sumerian knowledge would not be lost. Art, too, retained its signature form, stylized figures, divine symbols, and architectural motifs passed from Ur to Babylon, from clay to memory. Sumer's influence lived on not through armies, but through archives, temples, and schools. It endured because it was written, remembered, and revered. Even after the Neo-Sumerian era ended, the voice of Sumer continued to echo in the hands of Scribes and in the structure of empires yet to come. By 2004 BCE, the golden light of the Neo-Sumerian Renaissance began to dim. From the east, a new threat emerged: the Elamites, fierce warriors from the highlands of Iran. They swept across Sumer's weakened cities, and in a single devastating blow, they sacked the city of Ur and brought the Third Dynasty to an end. The fall was more than a military defeat, it was a final political eclipse for the Sumerians. With the collapse of Ur, there would be no more Sumerian kings. The centers of power shifted northward, to rising cities like Babylon, where new rulers adopted and adapted the traditions of Sumer. The Sumerian language, once the voice of gods and kings, slowly faded from daily speech. The people who had invented writing, ziggurats, and the first codes of law disappeared as a distinct group. And yet, Sumer did not vanish. Its ideas lived on. Its myths, tablets, temples, and systems shaped the empires that followed. The Babylonians called themselves heirs to Sumer. The Assyrians built ziggurats of their own, and scholars for generations studied the language of Ur. Though the last Sumerian city had fallen, its memory had not. Sumer became not just a civilization, but a foundation.